Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me at tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below, the new direct service email from you to me and my crew, tmosso@thewatchbox.com, for purchase inquiries about this or any watch you see here. And today we are discussing a vintage Omega Seamaster soccer chronograph, as it's often known, or football chronograph if you're non-American. The watch reference 145016 was made in the 1970s, and though not mechanically modified, it featured a distinctive and memorable dial designed to more easily time the halves of a soccer or football match. A timepiece redolent of 1970s style, this example has not been refinished by our offices, as we tend to prefer maintaining as much original material as possible and historic fabric on vintage watches. Now, the timepiece features that very vintage tonneau profile, and though it's a 38mm case, it wears more like a 40 in terms of its wrist presence. You can see that the watch is reasonably slim, and much of the thickness is that dramatically domed plexiglass. It is an Omega factory plexiglass piece, and you can see how much thickness it adds. So the watch itself is not terribly thick, and altogether it is 14mm. From lug to lug, delightfully compact. It's 43mm lug to lug with a 20mm spacing between the lugs, so you can use any 20mm strap, and you'll have a world of options if you wish to accessorize. Now, the watch is on an Omega factory bracelet. It is a reference 1116 with 342 end links, and I'll show you the interior of the clasp. You can see that it is substantial, and I rarely encounter vintage watch bracelets that feel this solid and intact. You can see that there are several different apertures cut inside the bracelet to allow you to restation it using only a spring bar tool, so you can easily size and fine tune. Now, you can see internally it's in very good shape. Let me show you the reference right there. You can verify that it is a 1116, an Omega factory. The bracelet's in excellent shape, and while all bracelets of this age with hollow center links are going to have some measure of play, this one has less than almost any of similar age that I've encountered. Now, the case is remarkably intact. I talked about the bracelet being good. The case is even better. You can see it's been worn. It's not immaculate. It's not a time capsule piece. There are scratches, there are swirls, there are scuffs, but critically there are no dents. There's nothing here that could not be finished out if you didn't want to. The only element that I feel is perhaps a little bit rougher than any other is going to be the satin finish on the top of the case itself. This would be more distinctly radially satin grained, and it's not so much that it's lost that finishing or lost metal, it's just less distinct than when it was new. And again, that's not really something you can fault in a watch that's now over 40 years old, approaching 50 in fact. You can see how sharp all the character lines, all of the bevels and facets are. This watch really retains almost everything that left the factory in Biel back in the early 70s. Now, the dial is sensational. You can see that it's a huge and riotous range of colors, as we have black, we have red, we have silver, we have the ecru faded coloration of the original tritium lume, and then of course we have several different dark blues. The chapter ring outboard is more of a dark slate blue than a gray, so I don't want the camera to deceive. You can see there are sunken registers for each of the sub-functions, and though we have a conventional 30-minute register for the chronograph, there is a sort of overrider or a superimposed 45-minute scale down at the base that allows you to more easily time the 45-minute halves of a football game. Now, of course, the watch features its proper Omega factory plexiglass crystal, and there is a little Omega logo underneath the center to prove it. You can see original tritium dial intact, both hands and indices. The dial appears untouched. There's no evidence of oxidation, physical contact from bad watchmaking, water damage, or fading. The colors are remarkably vivid for a watch of this age, and you can see that it's still fun to use, as it's a simple and infinitely serviceable Omega caliber 861 inside. It uses a moonwatch caliber, manual wind, 48-hour power reserve, 21,600 vibration per hour beat rate, tank tough cam, lateral clutch arrangement, 17 jewels, and back in its day, the watch would have been 50 to 60 meters water resistant. I don't recommend testing that on a true vintage timepiece, but it remains highly serviceable, as almost every standard watchmaker who knows how to work on a chronograph knows how to work on a moonwatch caliber. A lovely piece with an infinitely serviceable base movement that also carries the distinction of having flown with NASA right up until the 1990s. Being a moonwatch caliber does have its advantages for bragging rights. Let's throw this watch on the wrist real quick and you get a sense of how a 38mm tonneau case wears. The defining measurement for this watch is going to be that 43mm lug-to-lug, as I feel this watch, being so narrow across the wrist, could really wear well on almost any wrist. If you're a woman who's looking for a man's watch, but you don't want to go with something that is petite and modern, you might want to go with a standard-sized vintage watch, as this was the size of a rather substantial sports watch back in 1972 or 73. A handsome and beautifully preserved watch. This one's all about the case, the dial, and the history. Time your kid's next soccer match with a little bit more style and flair using this Omega Soccer Chronograph.